Okay, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pushtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nirvasisha Sunyavari Pashtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We began chapter 15 last week. We in a couple of slides. But just as a very quick recap, yeah, the path to association with pure devotees. What is it that happens to bless a jiva with the association of Vaishnavas? You know, association of Vaishnavas is very, very rare. Perhaps percentage-wise of all the does anyone know how many living beings on planet Earth, roughly? Billions of
8.1, I think.
huh?
8.1, close to
8.1
8.1.
billion.
Yes, over 8 billion. Yes.
All right, so 8 billion jivas. How many of them are in association of Vaishnavas? Very, very small amount. Yeah,
Handful.
yeah, handful. So it's kind of interesting this discussion. What is it that leads someone that blesses someone with the association of Vaishnavas? So the path to association with pure devotees. So we did start last week and we discussed first who are the pure devotees. We spoke a little bit about that. Hopefully, we have some idea who are the pure devotees, those with a pure heart who are serving the Lord. And then we spoke about overall the determination that's needed to obtain our ultimate goal, which is pure love of Godhead. That's the end, that's the path we are on to attain pure love of Godhead. So we have to be quite determined. And this example is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Although, remember, we were saying, although it seems futile at times, our efforts seem so futile, especially compared to the sadhana of great devotees that we hear about, very accomplished devotees. I mean, who are we? Yeah, so then this wonderful, encouraging example is given. It's in Bhagavad Gita, yeah, where a young bird, this young sparrow, is trying to empty the ocean in order to get his eggs back. What an impossible task. So it may seem like that, but Garuda saw the sincere efforts, and so the ocean promptly returned the eggs. So in the same way, we should always we should be just keep on keeping on, yeah, keep on endeavoring in our devotional activities, and day by day, yeah, we can come closer to the Lord. We can melt the Lord's heart. Well, the Lord's heart is already melted, but we can attract him to our efforts at obtaining him. All right, so that was last week, and beginning here. So the very acts that lead to not pure devotion, because normally you're going to start off with a semblance of devotion. I mean, that's where it begins. So I'm going to see it. The specific acts that, in a traditional sense of the term, in a traditional setting, that lead to a semblance of devotion to the Supreme Lord. Now, this is similar, so perhaps you might not remember, because we discussed this in the very beginning classes to some degree. So you might recognize some of these points. Again, any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. So devotional service, it can be divided in many ways, but looking at it from the point of view of basic two divisions. One is a shadow of devotion that's called Bhakti Abhas. Bhakti Abhas, yeah. And then there's pure. devotion. So this study we're doing is all about Suddha Bhakti. Yeah. So it's two basic divisions. There's a semblance, there's a shadow, and there is Suddha Bhakti, or also known as Uttama Bhakti. Yeah. So when it comes to a shadow bhakti, there's unlimited different variations and combinations. Unlimited. Remember, we discussed that. Yeah. Now, so, so just but acharyas do give an outline, although it comes many permutations of different semblances of devotion. There is a general outline that our acharyas have given us that generally people follow, even unknowingly. So here we have a basic breakdown. So Varnashram Dham, that's why it's so important actually to develop Varnashram Dham, because it sends people in the right direction. It gives them a culture. It gives them a pious culture. So that's where people generally going to follow rules and regulations of a social system. So that's given in the Vedic scriptures. But they may not specifically have full knowledge of Vishnu or full knowledge of Krishna. They're just following the culture. So you find persons who are born in a culture, a God conscious or a pious culture, they will just imbibe the principles of correct behavior, of righteous behavior, just by being in that environment, being born in that situation. And the same happens the other way. If you're born in a setting which is not pious, you're obviously going to develop irreligious tendencies. I was listening to a lecture. It's one Gaudiya Sannyasi, actually. I just came across it. I was just interested to hear his preaching because he was quite a personality. He was a sannyasi, but he had tattoos all over his head. Tattoos from here, all over his head, all on his neck, and tattoos all on his arms. He was big and long. He was a sannyasi, looked effulgent sannyasi. I thought, wow, it's interesting. Let's hear what he says. And he told something of his life story. He was in Paris. He was born in a very, very a degraded part of Paris, or a very low class place in Paris. And he was part of a motorcycle gang. Anyway, he gave some details of his past. It definitely wasn't pious. But he came to devotional service, and that's another whole aspect of this study as well. That even though someone is unbiased and not coming through this system that we're going to explain, by the power of the devotees, then persons from impious backgrounds can actually take up devotional service. But but if he was born in, say, he was born in West Bengal, Mayapur, he wouldn't have been part of a motorcycle gang. He might have been part of a kirtan gang. You know? So so that's why Varnashram is Prabhupada's, as you said, 50% of his mission was not accomplished, because that's one way of making devotees, is to create a social system where people automatically become pious and they automatically make steps towards bhakti. It's another discussion. But traditionally speaking, that's how it would happen. So they would follow rules and regulations. Not exactly, they would, just by dint of the culture, they would, if you can use the word, spontaneously follow rules and regulations and behavior and respect for elders, etc. But they may not have complete, or they may not have knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Yeah. Now, so that's the first one, Vanashram Dham. So next we got some technical words here. Sakam, Karma, Mishra Bhakti. So Mishra means mixed, so Bhakti, so Karma, so Sakam. This means they're working and they're attached to the results. Let's see here. So they're working within this nice structure, and one second, I've got to move some things around here. And it gives, and they give they give the results of their work to the Lord. But the reason they give it is for personal benefit. Yeah, that's in their mind when they're attending or when they're giving to the Lord. Prominent in their mind is this is a pious act which is going to be good for me, going to be good for my family. Yeah, and that's quite common. You may, it's quite common. Yeah, people, even not just temples, but churches and synagogues or mosques as well. I wonder if they have donation boxes in mosques. Probably they do, isn't it? Yeah, so you get the idea. So this is sakam. So they give the results of their work to the Lord, but it's for something personal. So that's known as sakam, karma, mishra, bhakti. All right. So then the next one is nishkam and nishkam karma, mishra, bhakti. So it's bhakti. It's interesting. It's bhakti, but it's mixed, but it's not pure. So this one, nishkam karma, they offer their results to the Lord, but without so much, they're not really conscientiously desiring something in return. That's not prominent in their heart or mind. You can see they're another level of piety up. Yeah, it's not prominent in their mind. Yeah, they're giving something not with the thoughts of getting something in return. Yeah, it's a different because it's different. It's another step higher. So it's called a nishkam. Yeah, that's come nishkam karma mishra bhakti, but they may not be in full knowledge of the Supreme. So the next one is nishkam karma jnana mishra bhakti. So they followed. So they offer the results of their work, but this time it's in full knowledge of the Lord. Not full knowledge to the point of inspiring them in pure loving devotion, but they have a very good concept and faith and understanding of the Lord and their position as the Lord's servant, at least theoretically. Yeah, so they offer their results of their work in full knowledge of the Lord. Yeah. Now, and then they got Ashtanga yoga here. At last they become absorbed in devotion to the Lord, but they or they in or they become absorbed in a mood of devotion, but there's no active service. They may Stanga yoga, they may engage in some meditation. Yeah. So this type of semblance of devotion, it's many varieties of it. Depends on the personality practice, and it's all different variations. But here's a rough outline. Yeah. So unlike the semblance of devotion, pure devotion is only of one type. Yeah. So in the sense that pure devotees, they only have one goal, and that's to please Krishna. So it's much different. It's very clear. That's their specific. They want to please Krishna. Whatever they're doing, they want to do it for the pleasure of Krishna. Yeah. They're not thinking of what might be in it for me. They're not attached to the results. They're inspired by, could say, love to some degree. They're appreciating the Lord and they're wanting to do something for Krishna. What they may or may not get back is not prominent in their mind. In that sense, they're not fruitive. Yeah, like all devotees here, you all it's most yeah, we're all going to the temple, all doing service, but it's not as if yeah, if I make if I make all the garlands, then I might get Krishna might give me a big house. If I make the garlands every day or if I make the garlands, if I do the transfer every Sunday, you know, then I might not get sick. And I'm exaggerating a bit, but yeah, the devotees are just happy serving the Lord. As heutige Buddhi-atma, yeah. So their service is unmotivated. Because it's unmotivated, then there's nothing that can interrupt it, you know, because they're just motivated to serve Krishna. So when someone has a motivation, then generally there be reasons, many types of reasons which they're going to discontinue that service. Yeah. So they're making no demands on Krishna. So, but still, this pure devotion goes through many different stages, goes through a number of stages. All right. So we've just quickly gone to pure devotion. We'll just quickly for now, just mentioned about how or this in what way people become pious or people act in the Varnashram system and gradually become purified. So now, just quickly here, Rupa Goswami, now you all would have heard of these different stages. We're all familiar with them, hopefully. This is a nice picture done by Vamsivat Prabhu a few years ago. Yeah. So Rupa Goswami, so now we've gone on to pure devotion. So don't forget, yeah, this section 3, which we're on, chapter 15, is the first chapter in the third part of Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. So the stages of pure devotion, that's the whole focus of this part 3 of Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. So Maharaj is now giving Rupa Goswamis from the Nectar Devotion Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. So he describes here. So this is stages in which spiritual emotions that you awaken. And gradually it intensifies till it comes to prema. Now, we're going to speak more about each of these stages. This is just a quick synopsis, okay? I won't spend so much time on this, might explain it a little. So the first is, you see down here, Shraddha. Yeah. So first, this is development of pure faith, in a sense that if I serve Krishna, I have nothing else to concern myself or worry about. My main focus is to serve Krishna. What he may see fit to give me or not give me, that is his mercy. But let me see how I can serve him. So that means to actually do that. So that's quite, you can say it's quite advanced. That means they got pure faith. Yeah. So that's going to lead them to the next one, which is sadhu sangha. Yeah. Or even to get the first one, they need sadhu sangha, isn't it? Need association of devotees. But here now they start to seriously associate with devotees. Yeah, I'm sure all of you can relate how at one point you wasn't so seriously, strongly associating with devotees. And then at some point in your devotional or in your spiritual life, you found yourself that you desperately wanted and needed to associate with devotees. And that's something that we all learn, we all catch on at some point, that association of devotees is so important. I think I've mentioned before that if you see on the notice board in the temple, just outside the shop, you see all these advertisements of flat sharing, yeah, or house sharing, and they want devotees. Everyone wants to live devotees. Everyone wants to share a house with devotees. Yeah, to associate with devotees, very important. So they take it very seriously. So sadhu sangha, they're getting a lot of sadhu sangha. So from faith that the sadhus, that the Hare Krishnas are not crazy, got some faith, they got something sublime. You know, just their association makes you feel. Although sometimes they can't really put their finger on it, but just being in association of devotees is something wonderful. Yeah. So they so sadhu sangha. So then they're going to begin bhajan kriya. So this is generally referring to at the beginning, one's going to be generally unsteady. Yeah. It's called bhajan kriya. They're engaging in hearing and chanting, but it may not be very, due to various impurities, etc., it may not be so focused, but still they're engaging in bhajan. They're doing some bhajan. And then concluding that, they're going to be eventually at some point they're going to place themselves under the guide of a spiritual master and retaining serious shiksha and initiation. And then they give up at this point, or they would have given up before they take initiation through bhajan kriya, given up the gross unwanted habits. That's called anartha nivritti. Yeah. Now, there's still some impurities that are there, but they will not be, or they do not affect one's devotional practices. Yeah, whereas the beginning of this, the unsteady devotion, then often one may give up their chanting or they may give up their devotional practices. But this stage, or the stage, well, actually, we're going to Nishta now. Yeah, so Nishta. So then this faith awakens further. So then devotees are fixed, Nishta. And there's different levels of Nishta. We'll discuss that. That will be discussed. Yeah. So 1 second. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Again, we're just given a basic outline, which will be elaborated upon. Okay. So you can still see the slide, okay? I'm moving a few things around. Can you see anything that's getting in the way of the slide?
No, it's okay.
Okay, great, fantastic. Yes, so, okay. Yeah, I was just studying this for another class I'm giving actually on Saturday. And speaking about, yeah, then from this firm faith, when devotees are gone through an art and a vritti, or, you know, the gross stuff, as they say, then nishta, because their application to practicing Krishna consciousness is consistent and constant. Yeah. So that is means purification is going to be happening. Yeah, especially if they're fixed. Purification, of course, the degree of purification will generally be according to the degree that one can focus on one's bhajan. Yeah, so the more one is able to focus on the holy name, then the more they're going to be, heart's going to be purified. And then at some point, then they're going to get, one's going to get a strong taste for devotional activities. That's called ruchi. Now, it's not as if someone doesn't get taste before this stage. There is, but here it becomes prominent, and that becomes the inspiration. Yeah. So strong taste for devotional service awakens. One begins to get relish something tangible. Yeah. And then it goes on, then we won't get into all the details here. Then that thickens more, that ruchi, then one becomes spontaneously, the heart, the mind becomes naturally attracted. It naturally flows. You know, that's called a shakti. Just like a magnet or an iron filing follows a magnet. But a shakti, because the heart's clean, it's attracted naturally to Krishna. could say spontaneously, because you've been purified. So you're you're getting to the purified state of the jiva. The jiva in its purified state is naturally attracted to Krishna. Yeah. Just like the example was given, just like a young man is attracted to a woman and a young woman is attracted to a young man. Yeah, I think one of our acharyas gives that example. He actually prays, "Oh, my dear Lord, please let my attraction to you be just like when a young man is attracted to a woman." And, so he's praying like that. So this is a Shakti, yeah, where the one's getting towards, there's still a long way to go, but one's going towards one's original constitutional position as being attracted to Krishna. So that's a Shakti. Sounds attractive? Hare Krishna. Yes. Now that constant attraction gets deeper, and then bhava, I think we discussed this before, we discussed that in the last chapter. An array of prema touches a devotee's heart. At that point, one is considered to be liberated from the bonds of the bonds of their karma, yeah, from the bonds of the free modes and material nature. That's called a ray of prema, that's called bhava. And then finally, it intensifies into what is known as prema. Okay? So, a quick synopsis. Right. So, going back turning again back to speaking about as semblance of devotion. So, what is it born from? Where does it come? It comes from a seed of, remember we spoke about this, of impure faith. Can anyone say what impure faith is? What does it look like? Have a guess.
In the beginning, we had those pictures shadow, person standing and then the shadow.
Say again?
In the beginning, you had a slide that there is a person standing and there is like his reflection behind him.
Yeah, you can remember that. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, remember we the subject which covers the of impure faith. Yeah, that's called a reflective semblance and a shadowy semblance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going in the right direction. So practically what it looks like, it looks like we have this prosperity gospel, like in some Christian churches, where they're not aiming for pure devotion. They have faith in God, but they're not aiming to serving Him purely. They have faith in God as someone who's going to fulfill my material desires. So that faith is there in God, but it's impure. It is compromised. Yeah.
Negotiated.
It's, sorry?
Negotiated.
Negotiate. You could look at it like that. There's a negotiation going on. So they got faith in God. I mean, they're not atheists. They've got faith in God. But their purity, their compromise, because they're attached to, again, fruitive results, or they want moksha. And it's not, I don't know if you don't hear it so much in Western type of religious settings. I want moksha. It's certainly an Indian thing. Or craving for mystic powers, yeah, like the Astanga yogis. So get the idea, they have faith, but it's impure. They believe God exists, but so that means that their practice of devotion is going to be impure based on their impure faith. The seed is impure. Remember that whole beginning about the seed of devotion? If you got the seed of pure devotion, you're going to cultivate pure devotion because you understand very clearly what it is through hearing and chanting about the activities of pure devotees. You're very clear where you want to go. Okay, we might not be there, but we want to clear where we're going. So that's called the seed of pure bhakti, bhakti ladder bija. And that's what the guru is giving. They're not giving impure bijas. Yeah, if you go to these other places, these other churches, or whatever, I guess there's different types of churches, different types of synagogues or practices. But if you've got faith, you got faith in God, and then you got faith for the person who's preaching to you, and they may be charismatic, and they're telling you that God will give you everything you want. You understand? You're going to the church, you're going to the mosque, you're going to the temple, whatever, and you're engaging in acts of devotion. You've got your hands held like this, and you're listening to the sermon, but you have an impure seed. You have impure faith. You're not clear. It's the goal is not pure. Yeah, maybe or craving for mystic powers. Yeah. Okay. So now, generally, fruitive workers, this word fruitive, they wanted something in return. They're going to follow back to this again, path of Varnashram Dham. Now, they're kind of ignorant of the actual purpose. The purpose is to bring one to Krishna, ultimately. So they just follow it as a mere tradition. They're not really, they're kind of ignorant of its ultimate goal and ultimate purpose. They're just following it, what their grandparents did, what their parents did. Yeah, they're ignorant of the goal. Some of you might be coming from a cultured, pious Indian background, but you might have not been very clear what the actual goal of the culture or the pious life is. It's just tradition. Yeah. Now, others see the Varnashram society as a kind of as a vehicle for being religious. Yeah, and some others will participate, but they're doing it and they participate out of a sense of duty to actually set the right example. So they see Varnashram as, this is a vehicle for religious life. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on the time because I do want to make sure we cover an important part here. Yes. So these are pious people, but they're materialistic. Yeah, they're attached to a specific role in the social structure. They have faith in that structure as well. Now it says, let me just read this part here. Their piety is in their obedience. Yeah, their piety, the definition of piety is their obedience to these divine regulations, which is set by Krishna. Yeah, it's all ultimately, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So their piety is in their obedience to divine regulations, which ultimately is set by Krishna. Yeah, so in other words, their goal, though, because it's materialistic, is to perfect their social and familial obligations. Yeah. Now, you follow so far? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. So now then, in order to follow the right religious practices and principles, they're going to take guidance from brahmanas. They should do. Take guidance from brahmanas. So they're going to take guidance from brahmanas, and there's gonna be some restraint. They're gonna restrain themselves from irreligious acts. Yeah. And I'm always interested to see how the psychology of pious people who I meet, especially I meet in London or meet one on the West or even here, well, very much here, is that they have a inbuilt fear of acting irreligiously. A lot of people. That's the culture they have been brought up in. Now, but what often happens is that, say they're pious and they come to study, they're young people, they're pious, they're brought up in a pious setting, then they come to study somewhere in the West, America or Europe or England. They start to associate with persons who are not pious, who don't have no sense of conscientious apprehension about doing irreligious things, drinking alcohol, illicit sex, gambling, etc. Yeah, people in the West, you can tell, if you tell them the way they've been brought up, a lot of people, if you tell them that their drinking is sinful, they laugh in your face. They literally don't give a damn for you. You're just a religious nut. People in the East, people in the pious don't realize how that may affect them. So a lot of so they associate, and then they start to feel, I know they start to feel intimidated. They start to feel they're the odd one out, and they start to feel that they're strange because all these people. Okay, let's go to the pub. Let's go. The whole. I mean, you get the idea. Yeah, and chasing after the opposite sex and watching all types of porn and everything. For like people in the West, that is what they do. They don't think, unless they're pious Christians, which is not many. So you get the idea how people can be, people can, by due to association, they can become milechas and javanas. Yeah. And the whole thing then, yeah. But generally, if they're in a pious setting, they're going to restrain themselves. Actually, having said all that, that's why temples play such an important role. We get young Indians, they come to England or London, I've seen it many times, and the temple saves them. Because there's pious people in the temple and there's the devotees in the temple. And it gives them inspiration to continue to stick to their piety, to stick to their pious life. I mean, Christians deal with this as well. I was reading one book recently where this lady was brought up in a Christian setting, very strong Christian setting, very pious. And then she goes to university. And they're all going wild. All the young kids, they go to university in America and all going wild, all kind of let loose from their parents, doing all types of things. And she came to a point where she was deciding, okay, do I continue to follow Jesus here, or do I put my Christianity on hold for the next 7 years or so and just party? And all credits to her, then she stuck to her Christian principles and didn't drink alcohol and didn't, get into illicit relationships, And she started a whole Christian fellowship within the university and made lots of people Christians. So that happens as well. Mother Jambavati, you had your hand raised?
Yes, Prabhu, sorry. I wanted to ask, you
Yeah.
mentioned that in pious settings changing everything. What about the people, devotees? Yeah, they staying in pious environment in temples and japa and practicing and whatever, but they still chasing that what material and doing crimes and doing the bad things. Can you elaborate on that one? That pious setting not always changing people, or it works?
Yeah, well, there's various factors there. I mean, one takes up the path of devotional service, but also that's why I mean, it's a good question because within a community, there's going to be these different types, these different levels of commitment, you know. So that's why we want to associate with devotees who are following very nicely and who are progressive in their devotional practice. So that's also we should be aware of that as well. You know, it might also because spiritual life also it may be one is unable to uphold the principle of pure devotion. So they may make some adjustments in their spiritual practices. That's something else as well, you know. Or it may be that if someone is making offenses to devotees, then they're going to become, you know, they're going to fall down from practicing devotional service. So it's not always easy to tell exactly what's going on with a devotee, but generally the opportunity is there. And if one follows nicely, there isn't any reasons why one should again go back to their materialistic ways. But it does happen because the material energy is very powerful as well. So that Devi he is Shugunamayi, the material energy is very powerful. So it's a good point you're making because it's not as if everyone automatically goes towards the supreme destination. But once they have surrendered to Krishna with all sincerity, then even if they may stray, it may be for the best because Krishna's going to arrange, he's going to kind of rub their face in it, you could say, into the material energy. And I've seen that many times where persons go away from devotional service and they get purified not through the association of devotees, but they get purified through the external energy of the Lord. And they come back and they come back in a humble, very much humbled. You know, so there's a few thoughts on that of Jambavati. I don't know if you had any thoughts as well. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, good. Someone else had a question there?
I was just thinking also it's our deep-rooted desires, conditioning. We've been in the material world so long that we have that conditioning and it takes time for it to be, purified.
Yeah. So, yeah, for countless billions of lifetimes, yeah, we have this conditioned nature. So it's not always easy to overcome. But by following nicely, we can stay insulated, even though we have impurities within our hearts. By keeping the association of devotees, we can be somewhat insulated. Yeah. So even that verse says, even if a taste for sense object remain, being fixed in devotion. Yeah. Alexander G, you had your hand raised?
Yeah. May I ask a question about these 9 stages?
Yes. Okay. Let's go.
Because once we accumulate knowledge about these 9 stages, often this knowledge then interacts with the experience, and then we start to label it, and so label it.
Label it.
The knowledge of these stages interacts with the experience, and we start to label. Oh, I am here, where I'm advanced, and based on this, the question is there a time when a devotee's observer's mind collapses, like when the mind eventually stops tracking in a state? And for example, just as a hungry person doesn't think, I am now in advanced stage of hunger, they just simply eat.
Yeah. Now, there's something which is quite paradoxical and quite mystical with the advancement in spiritual life, in that the advancement one is making is caused or manifest by realization of the Supreme, of Krishna, to a one degree or another. So, say someone's at Shraddha and then association with devotees. I guess just then their one is a bhajan kriya. Now, as one's chanting the holy name of the Lord, as one's associating with devotees, a subtle sangha, subjectively they're situated at a particular stage, but objectively speaking, from their point of view, they are lowest of the lowest. Trinadapi sunityena torodapi shishnana amanina manivina kitana sadahari. So you'll have devotees at Ruchi and Shakti and Abhava who will have intense, profound humility, where they think everyone else is more advanced than them. We cannot understand it fully from our conditioned perspective. So it's not as if devotees, okay, great, now I've gone past Anartha Nivritti, I'm at Nishta. Actually, I had good rounds yesterday. I'm just achieved Ruchi. Actually, I'm at Shakti now. I should, this time next year, I'll be at Bhava. I'm exaggerating a bit. Devotees don't think like that. You know, devotees of Bhava, uh, 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 their whole, they're soaked in intense humility. Yeah, they would take the dust, they're trying to get the dust of every Vaishnava in order to attain their goal. Yeah. And you see that also an example of the residents of Vrindavan. I mean, they're residents of Vrindavan, but they have this profound humility. So you see how it's kind of a mystical. It's not as if they acknowledge themselves. Now, so that's one point. Let's check this out. Yeah. Another point is that devotees are able to, with knowledge, and because they have experience of devotion, they are able to objectively, at times, understand where devotees may be in their devotional practice. Although they understand that they are Trinadapi Sunityena, they have deep humility, but subjectively speaking, they may observe someone at the stage of unsteady devotion, and they know the symptoms of unsteady devotion. But they do not think, oh, I'm superior to you. They just have a clear understanding and they feel compassion. They feel compassion. Now, at the stages to recognize devotees at the stages of these higher stages of devotion, I mean, we have discussed it before, there are symptoms of bhava that cannot be hidden and cannot be imitated, and there's symptoms of prema. Yeah, but often, generally, you may not truly be able to see or understand where a devotee is situated in spiritual life. Yeah, I'll give you an example. We was in Mayapur, and we are in Mayapur. We was in. I'm in Mayapur, and there was one Mataji lady married two children, and she was explaining about the holy Dham. She was explaining about we was in one place, and she was telling us all about Bhakti. Yeah, I won't give the place away name, but guess who it is. But anyway, and I could one time, she was looking at the deities And this was when there's a big crowd everywhere. There's lots of noise, as you know, in the temples. Bang, bang, dang, dang. And she could tell she was crying. She had tears coming from her eyes. And when I went to speak with her, she kind of quickly, I mean, when I went to ask her a question, and she had about the deities, and she was very, anyway, you get the idea that, and then her speaking, and I was just thinking, my thoughts were, she's she may be at Bhava, at the stage of Bhava, where she's experiencing intense attachment, but she knows she's married, she's got two children. She's now no one's going to see her, no one's going to know, no one. She's not giving classes, she's not, and she does give class. But your idea is not going to be, generally we're looking at the sannyasis who are, the sannyasi got bhava, has the sannyasi got prema, has the sannyasi got ruchi, is the big person leading the kirtan, have they got ruchi? But it may be just, ruchi doesn't just appear in sannyasi, it may appear in it may appear in anyone. I'm going off the track a bit here, but you get the idea. So they're not going to be saying, "Yeah, I'm a barber." Generally, at barber, when someone at barber is experiencing ecstasy, they think, "I'm so fallen, so fallen that Krishna's so kind. He's trying to encourage me because I'm such a wretch, but Krishna's so kind." He's Krishna's trying to encourage me despite my useless self. They're not saying, "Oh, now but you harbor." Doesn't exist within a devotee's psychology, not a real devotee. Yeah, Mother Jamavati, you have your hand raised again.
Yes, Prabhu, I want to share my experience when I went to Parishvara. It was more than 20 years ago. I went with team of
Ishvara?
sports people. Parishvara, yeah, Paris.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we stayed in the temple. I went as a journalist, yeah, more than 25 years ago.
Okay.
And when I saw first time Parishvara, I bowed, yeah, of course, you give obeisance, and I stand in front of them, and something happened. My tears started going like rivers, like I didn't cry, but they were running, and it was cold. Usually when we cry, yeah, from upsetting, for anger, tears are hot.
Yeah.
But this time it was cold, and I'm standing, and we're running. And I don't know what to do. I feel embarrassed. And those people around me, they're looking at me and they're asking, "Why are you crying?" I said, "I'm not crying." And they say, "Yeah, but tears are running." I said, "I don't know." But the feeling was, it was so strong. I was in such an ecstasy. I can't describe it. I didn't like to be bothered at all. I didn't want people to ask me. But because I didn't want to be rude, I had to say, "No, I don't cry. No, just get off me." But that feeling, what I had, I miss for the rest of my life. Every time I go now to Londonishvara, I want to have that feeling, but I don't have that feeling. Finished. That's gone. But that time, what I had this experience keeps me going and longing. What I want to say, this is longing. This is real longing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, cold tears, a symptom of happiness, ecstasy. So devotees have these experiences. Mother Jambavli is just kindly sharing the experience. So we will have these experiences even at the stage of sadhu sangha, bhajan kriya. Sometimes the bhajan kriya you can experience a shadow of bhava. It's not actual the full-blown bhava, but you're going to feel intense ecstasy. And then that's going to propel you on. That's going to give you so much faith. Some other Jambavati just shared a nice example. I'm sure we all could tell similar stories. where we've been touched by the Lord in a very profound way. And it's amazing. At the same, I think we can all experience that when you do experience that touch of Krishna, you don't think you're great. You think you're very small. And that's why you're, and then the more you think you're small, the more you experience it. As soon as we start to think we're this or we're that, then the whole thing recedes. Anyway, thank you, Mother Jambati, for sharing that. Any other questions or comments on this? How do we get on that thread? Neri, you had your hand raised? Neri.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Krishna,
I do have a question. Let's say a person is in a stage of root, or one of those higher stages of the bhakti. Would they still have some anarthas in them, or does everything just finish at that anartha nivritti stage?
No, there's still, that's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Still, the gross anarthas will be gone, but even up to the stage of bhava, there are still shadows of anarthas. And that's generally going to come from offenses to the holy name. It's still going to be there. But it's just like if you have a clay pot and it's filled with wine and you tip out the wine, the clay pot will still smell of wine. So it's not complete. The stage of anartha nivritti, the gross attachments may be gone, but still there's more purification to take place. So yeah, so then Nishtha, then Ruchi, then Shakti, then Bhava, then it's finally at the stage of Prema. Then one is reinstated in their original constitutional position. So in answer to your question, no, it's still impediments, there's still a shadow there of anarthas will be there. But at least anartha vritti means you're able to continue, it brings you to nishtha, where you continue despite the impurities that may still be there in the heart. Trying to think, there's one verse then describes it. Anyone know that verse, Srimad Bhagavatam? Raj Kishore, you remember that where Shimbatam Swakata Krishna Punyashwava Ketana Hristo Patrani Fit Noti Saritatam. Yeah. The Lord within the heart purifies the devotee. There's other verses which have consequence, which carry on after that, that describe that all the impurities are destroyed almost to nil. So almost to nil. So that almost is what we're speaking of. It's not complete. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Right, let's just, where was we? We went off on a thread there. Oh, I went off on a thread there. Let's get back where we was. A few more minutes left. Okay, we did go quite off. And yeah, that was it. It started off speaking about how pious persons can be influenced by impious association. Yeah. Here, no. Yeah, so their piety, just get back on track. Their piety is in their obedience to the divine regulations set forth by Krishna. So for them, religion is a means to perfect their social and family obligations. And therefore, they place themselves under the guidance of learned brahmanas. So that's they're materialistic, but they're pious, but now they're putting themselves under the direction of brahmins. And they voluntarily refrain from irreligious acts. That's where we left off. Yeah. So their goal, basically, they want to be, they consider being peaceful, happy, and prosperity. Yeah, that's what they're seeking. Their gain is they want to be peaceful, they want to experience happiness, and they want their needs met. But actually, they gain something else. Yeah. Well, so whether they know it or not, the real reward for their being pious is that's their increased eligibility for spiritual life. That's where piety should take one. Materialistic piety should take one to spiritual. Now, spiritual life is not dependent upon it. That's another subject. But we're speaking of those who are coming through this path. Yeah. And then we have this verse from, and Krishna's going to, this is from Bhagavad Gita. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, 723, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotee ultimately reaches my supreme planet. Yeah, so Krishna doesn't condemn these persons because if they follow the Vedic injunctions and they worship him according to their nature, so then, yeah, so that's what's recommended. Now, I didn't get, I might just go over a couple of minutes here. So now, for persons who don't have a taste for hearing and chanting, then they're very much recommended to very seriously follow Vedic injunctions. Yeah. This is a verse from the 11th canto. As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. Yeah. So to elevate non-devotees, the Vedas recommend worship of demigods. They're kind of like, you could see them as subordinate limbs of Krishna. Yeah. So in other words, Krishna's directing people to serve these functional deities, say demigods. Yeah. So it's teaching them to cultivate a sense of accountability for supreme beings, here specifically the demigods. So that's good. So that they have particular faith, and Krishna gives them the faith in the demigods. Krishna again explains that in Bhagavad Gita. He makes their faith steady because that will qualify them at some point for like taking up spiritual life. Yeah. Now, yeah, and Margie scribes here. Let's just go forward a bit. Now this powerful work, these persons who have faith, if they're not contaminated by Mayavad philosophy, then that's something else. If they're contaminated by Mayavad philosophy, all is one and I am you and there's no God and we are all one, then they're not going to progress. Yeah. But let us just say someone is not contaminated by Mayavad philosophy, then their faith in the Vedic system will grow. So and their tendency to accept authority will also strengthen. So that's going to lead to a semblance of devotion to the Supreme Lord. And ultimately, that semblance of devotion will lead them to pure devotional service. Yeah. So what we're describing as faith in the demigods should do, it actually leads to faith in Krishna. So that's why Krishna, he kind of shows demigod worship as special interest. Yeah. As the Lord in the heart, he makes their faith steady. Yeah. Now, the point I wanted to just go over a couple of minutes here, just to finish on this point. Yeah. Now, if demigod worship is part of the Vedic system, why did Prabhupada so vehemently go against it? There's so many quotes where Prabhupada is very strongly speaking against demigod worship. Yeah. Now, so why is that? Well, Maharaj brings out here that basically in Kali Yuga, this path which we just explained, on the whole, it more or less doesn't exist. Yeah. Now, I mean, there's hardly any qualified Brahmanas to guide people. There may be Brahmanas, but they're all corrupted and in many different ways. There's no longer a security of society based on Varnashram to facilitate this long-term cultivation. Yeah. And Mayavad philosophy has stolen, Maharaj describes it, just read this here. Mayavad philosophy has stolen from the people knowledge of both the demigods and Krishna. So gross materialism's got everyone is distracted. Yeah. Everyone is distracted by gross materialism. Yeah. So basically, the acharyas have discarded demigod worship actually as being ineffectual. Yeah. So yeah, just finish on this story here. Yeah, Prabhupada voiced this conclusion very strongly. He didn't, we don't disrespect demigods, but we worship Krishna directly. And then Prabhupada, in this regard, he tells a story of one Brahmin who was worshipping Lord Shiva, very devoutly worshipping Lord Shiva. He wanted why was he worshipping Lord Shiva? He wanted the most benediction, the most opulent things. So he's worshipping Lord Shiva. He's very, very dedicated to Lord Shiva. I think we might know this story. Then Lord Shiva actually advised him, actually, if you really want the most valuable thing, then you should go to Sanatana Goswami. Yeah, we know the story. Touchstone. So he goes to Sanatana Goswami and he says, Lord Shiva has appeared to me in a dream and said that you had the most valuable thing. So Sanatana Goswami, he understood that this person is he's very materialistic, but he's devoted to Lord Shiva. So what Sanatana Goswami did, he sent him to where the rubbish was. And we know that there was a touchstone. And it's interesting this about the touchstone. The Goswamis speak about it as if it's quite easily available. It's mystical. So this is a stone that that whenever you touch iron, it turns it into gold. It's called a touchstone. Yeah. So Sanatana Goswami he had no use for such a thing, so it was kept in the rubbish. So he pointed to this Brahmin. Yeah, it's there, and okay, go. There's a touchstone there. So as we can understand, and this Brahmin, he thought, he took it. Then he realized actually this can't be the most valuable thing because it was in the rubbish. It was in the bin. The touchstone in the bin. So he must have something more valuable. And what did Sanatana Goswami have that was more valuable than touchstone?
Mahamantra.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. So in other words, the story, like his devotion to Lord Shiva had took him to Krishna. Yeah, it took him to Krishna. And then there's a contemporary example of this that Maharaj gives. Some of you might know who we're speaking about here. There was a young, very pious family, very pious lady, a young woman. She arrived in the UK, and let me just start here. There was one devotee. He comes from a family of Vaishnavas, and he's the head of the congregation preaching, head of congregation preaching in the part of England. Now he's coming from a devoted Vaishnav family. Now his family had arranged a marriage of a wife for him, and this was this young woman who was a devout follower and worshipper of Lord Shiva. So he's a Krishna Bhakta, she's a Shiva Bhakta. So who's going to be the family deity? They had a big disagreement. probably pious disagreement. Disagreement. Who's going to be who are we going to worship as a family? You know, they both come from different traditions. And then Lord Shiva appeared in her dream and said that because she's been faithfully worshipping him, Shiva, for many years, she can now worship Krishna. Yeah. Because by serving Krishna, she will be serving Lord Shiva in the best possible way. So after this, she became a devout devotee, Vaishnava, and she took initiation, and she serves Gaunitai and Jagannath with wonderful devotion. So there's an example how the worship of, in this instance, can get a blessing of the demigod. But we're encouraged to take up worship of Krishna directly. Okay, sorry, went over time a bit there. So we stop there. Any last questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for kind attention. So now it's 20 to 12.
Oh my God, it's late for you.
Go to sleep and try and make it with Mangaladi. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, your devotional service ki jai, the science devotion ki jai. Nitya Gaur Premanande, Hari